G'day folks, my name is Rob. Welcome back to another F1 fantasy video. Today we're looking at my team selection for race week 6. We have the Imola Grand Prix in a few days time. So we're going to take a look at how I went in race week 5 in Miami and look ahead to the upcoming race week. So if you're new to the channel, you enjoy the content, be sure to like the video and subscribe to it. Let's get straight into it. So for race week 5 in Miami, finished up with 333 points. Max Verstappen carried the team 64 with that DRS boost. So great result for him. Made up a number of points from overtakes, positions gained, driver of the day. So all of that good stuff on your extra DRS boost. Can't complain about that. Alonso, Perez did their part. And then Stroll, who started a little further back, made up some points on Sunday through, again, the overtakes and the positions gained. And then that obviously culminated in some sound results for both Red Bull and Aston Martin. Still, in my opinion, the two best constructors to own. Joe finished with 1 point for me. All of the budget drivers actually didn't perform all that well. Sonoda was the only one that really had a great weekend. So I don't seem to have any luck with picking the right budget driver in this lottery. If you see kind of my thoughts and considerations in the lead up to the race, based on what I've selected so far, don't choose who I go with. And we'll get to who I want to, or I'm considering going with ahead of Imola. But all in all, 333 points. My rank is up to 132, a very small green arrow. Again, 5 races into the season. Not yet too concerned about where I stand, because once chip usage shakes out and those engaged players activate those at more optimal times than all of those folks further up the field that have already used it, I think we'll see a few changes in rank. So I'm not too concerned where I stand, but I think over the course of the next few races, when more of those chips come into play, we will see a bit of movement on the leaderboard. So if we take a look at my current team setup, as has been the case since the start of the season and the state of the game, triple Red Bull, triple Aston Martin, not changing anytime soon. I know a couple of people have thought about, that I've spoken to, thought about choosing another constructor other than Aston Martin. Ferrari and Mercedes are the obvious two that come to mind, but realistically at 7 million, you just can't look past Aston Martin. Even if Alonso and Stroll end up finishing the race in the bottom half of the top 10, that's still excellent value, and you're I think, naturally going to score, when you spread your funds across to Perez or other slots in the team, going to still score a comparatively better points total that weekend. So I can't really see myself changing that setup at the moment. The only real consideration I've thought about making was potentially bringing in Gasly for Lance Stroll. Gasly obviously had a very strong qualifying last week in Miami, 2 weekends ago, should I say. Even though Lance Stroll, obviously having qualified so poorly on Saturday, managed to make up a few extra points on the Sunday. So that's obviously one option. The other kind of point of contention in my team is that budget slot, which is just a revolving door of drivers priced under $5 million. So certainly at least these 3 on the left-hand side and Alonso, I cannot see changing whatsoever. So as far as this slot in the middle is concerned, as has been the case with me for a couple of weeks now, still can't get to Alex Albon, priced out by 0.1. De Vries and Sargent, I am not going near. I'm a bit concerned by some of the inconsistencies we've seen from them the last few races, given they're rookie drivers. De Vries in particular just hasn't really impressed, and there's obviously speculation around his race seat in a number of races coming under threat from Liam Lawson. Even Daniel Ricciardo's been mentioned as a name, or I think it's Awusu. Apologies if I mispronounced that name. As potential replacements for him if De Vries doesn't seem to pull together a couple of consistent results in the coming weeks. We've got a triple header in the next 3 weeks, so we should hear certainly by the start of June whether or not he's probably going to continue in that seat. So for me, for the reasons mentioned, De Vries, Sargent, not really on my radar. Hulkenberg, he's looked really good for Haas in qualifying, but as I've reiterated a number of times, just doesn't seem to have that same pace on the Sunday and loses a few positions. So for me, it boils down to Tsunoda and Joe. Tsunoda is really impressed, has been consistent through the first 5 or so races, and I think that consistency, that reliability, that has actually not been so present in previous seasons for Tsunoda is really coming through now. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing from that Japanese driver. He's really proven me wrong, and I think realistically could be the fellow that drops into this slot for me ahead of Imola. As I mentioned before, alternatives for Lance Stroll, I think, remains Pierre Gasly. So I think if I decided to bring him in, that would give me 4.6. Again, priced out by 0.1. Otherwise, Tsunoda would be an easy pick for me to go in there. So if I'm left with just Hulkenberg and Sargent, I'm probably going to go Hulk, just because he's got a little bit more experience on his side. And as I mentioned, Sargent's rookie season hasn't been incredibly promising so far. Maybe over a few more races we see a bit more from him. But right now, I think I'm much more leaning towards a proven commodity in Hulkenberg. So if I go that route, great. But at the moment, I'm still kind of standing pat with Lance Stroll and Tsunoda in that budget slot. So there was something else I wanted to talk about in this team selection video, not actually to do with my team selection at all. And if I do end up releasing a final thoughts video closer to the race, I'll readdress these points at that point in time. But I wanted to address the weather concerns ahead of Imola. There's been a number of reports around flooding, torrential rain, etc. in the area, and this is just over at Planet F1. It's across Twitter if you're on Twitter as well, around the weather forecast and how much the region of Bologna, Imola has been bombarded with rain, as they say here. So the Italian Meteorology Office has issued new flood and landslide warnings as a result of this bad weather, and we're seeing in the next couple of days or so rainfall of up to 100 millimeters. So by Wednesday night at least. So not a great sign. There isn't expected to be this bad of a forecast through to Sunday, but I still believe rain is expected to persist, and that means that opens the door for the no negative chip. I'll get to that in a moment. But realistically, even if the rain does persist, it's reported the race weekend should still go ahead as planned. So I guess that's a concern, something to think about, keep in mind ahead of this weekend. Chris Medlin reported on Twitter that personnel have been told to evacuate the Imola circuit as a result of flood risk. It is precautionary, so I guess we'll have to wait and see if this continues through to the rest of the week. But one of my followers did actually tweet me on this tweet and asked, if the race doesn't proceed, do we lose points? Does the no negative chip come in use here? I have an opinion as of right now that yes, I think the no negative chip is by far and away the best chip to use for a wet race. However, because we don't have any news or announcements confirmed from F1 essentially saying whether or not the race is going ahead, I would avoid from activating the chip as of right now. I personally think the race will go ahead, at least at this point in time. We'll have a look at the forecast momentarily. But the concern I have is, in the event it doesn't and we activate our no negative chip, do we get the chip returned or refunded, whatever you want to call it? I have absolutely no idea whether that would happen. There were concerns last year, I think it was Japan, where it was also a wet race. There was speculation around whether or not certain people who'd activated certain chips in a delayed race that may have been cancelled would result in that, but the race proceeded, so didn't need to worry about it too much. But if the race, for whatever reason, was cancelled, everyone will get 0 for the week, or at least I think that would make the most sense. I can't see why anything else would need to change in relation to that. So that's at least kind of my point of view on that so far. We'll hopefully have more information shared with us by the time we get to free practice on the Friday. But just stay tuned for that news, because I'm sure that will certainly dictate some of our chip usage and transfer decisions heading into the weekend. So I'll do my best impression of a weatherman. I don't pretend to be a weather expert, let alone an F1 fantasy expert. So I thought I'd just quickly bring this up, and we'll potentially revisit this, as I said, in my final thoughts video as I get to it. This is just the radar for the Bologna region. Obviously, Imola is just southeast of Bologna. So this is today's forecast. If we zoom out a little bit, it's probably like, at least based on what the radar is saying, somewhat heavy rain, and that's expected to subside a little bit as we go into the back end of the week. For the Sunday, at least, is what we've got here, precipitation of 7.5 millimeters, and that's expected to continue throughout all of Sunday, with high probability of rain, obviously, and then thunderstorms are also likely to feature in the mix too. So this is the Met Office for the Bologna region, as I pointed out. Most of the heavy rainfall should probably occur prior to the free practice on Friday, but there is still some rain expected heading into the weekend. So I had Sunday, but I go into Saturday because that's in the lead up to the deadline. Not much rainfall forecast in the morning, with a little bit expected to occur in the afternoon and late evening. And then the Sunday obviously is kind of what really implicates our points, our teams, and our chip usage in our decisions. So Sunday morning, a bit of rain. The race is at 3 p.m. Sunday afternoon track time. So we'll have, clearly some rain that's coming through. 15 degrees Celsius, not that really makes a difference what the temperature is. Fahrenheit, I think that's around 60 degrees for our American viewers. But I think there's still going to be a high chance of rain, and I think that absolutely warrants use of the no negative. We may well have more wet races down the line, but I think this is a great opportunity to activate the no negative chip if you're thinking about using it. And for me personally, I want to wait and see. We could have the rain completely subside in the next few days, but I highly doubt that will happen based on what the forecast and the radar is saying. So leave your decisions, as I said, up until the last minute, because there's clearly going to be a lot to think about and consider ahead of the race. But based on what the forecasts are saying, it probably is going to be a pretty wet race, and hopefully a little bit of chaos, but not too much. So yeah, if you're not sure how the no negative chip works, check out my chip usage video. I released that last week. That should give you a pretty good rundown on what that involves. One last thing before I wrap this up is that Pirelli are also introducing some new tyre compounds for qualifying, and then obviously for the wet as well. Just something to think about. Drivers have to use the hard compound in Q1, the medium in Q2, and the soft in Q3. So I can't say with any certainty how that is going to implicate my decisions, if any at all, for team selection. But at the moment, just based on what the template and how strong Red Bull and Aston Martin are looking at based on our price points, I can't really see myself pivoting away from them too much at the moment. But as I said, going back to this team here, it's probably going to be Sonoda replacing Joe, and then at the moment Stroll in that last slot. But if I feel strongly about getting Pierre Gasly in and Hülkenberg, let's just see how the practice time shake out, and we'll go from there. But anyway, a very short team selection video. Obviously not a lot to talk about because nothing in the game has changed around pricing and the template. But notwithstanding that, if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll hopefully be back with another final thoughts video later in the week. So until then, all the best, and I'll see you very soon.